Hi guys, it's Heather from Knottywood Yarn. We are going to be beginning a tutorial series on how to dye protein fibers or wool, silk, that kind of fiber, animal fibers with acid dye yarns. So stay tuned and we will have video number 1 in the series, which explains what acid dyes are and how you figure out how much to use. So stay tuned. Okay, so what is acid dye? Acid dye is a compound that has been made to work with an acid, such as vinegar or citric acid or whatever acid of your choice, to adhere to animal fibers. So the presence of the acid actually makes the compound work or adhere. It makes the whole process work. So if you don't add an acid, will the dye adhere to animal fibers? The short answer is yes. And sometimes it'll seem like a lot has adhered, sometimes a little bit less. It depends on the color. The problem really is in staying. Will it stay in that fiber, on that fiber? No, it doesn't. It washes out, and as soon as you add soap, it is going to come out. You are going to lose all of your dye. And that is not what you want. You go through all the trouble of dyeing something, you would like your dye to stay. So acid dyes, where do we get them from? They are readily available online. You can Google fiber acid dyes and it will give you a plethora of places to order fiber acid dyes. I have a couple examples here. One is Dharma Trading Company. Now they have their own line and they also have Jacquard acid dyes that you can order from them as well. Jacquard is available on Amazon too, or a couple of other retailers. And sometimes Jacquard is available in your hobby shops. And then there's also Pro Chemical and Dye, but usually they're referred to as Prochem. And that's where you can get your powder acid dyes. So when you get your powder acid dye, you decide which ones you want, you order them, you get them. They are a powder. They come in these containers, big containers, littler containers, depends on how much you order. And they actually are not something that you want to open up and look at unless you have a respirator or a dust mask on. So you do not want to open these up to look at your color, see, you know, this one is teddy bear brown. And if you open it up, you want to see if it looks like it's brown. You don't want to do that unless you have a respirator or a dust mask on. No matter what acid dye you get, you do not want to open it up or have them open in any way without some type of respiratory protection. So, and they'll tell you that on the packaging as well. So that's, they come in powder. How do you use them? Well, there are a million techniques on how you use them. You can usually use them as a powder dry, or you can make what is called a dye stock and use them as a liquid, in different strengths. So those are the two general ways that you use them. You can make a paste. And I have heard of people who use a paste for some things, but I don't personally use that, so I can't speak to that one. So, powder you can sprinkle on things, you can add it and kind of smush it in. There are a lot of different things, and we will be doing videos on that in this tutorial series. So just stay tuned. We're not going to be covering that in this or the next couple of videos. So that's that. Now, the next video that we're going to be making is making a dye stock. And that now I want to explain to you a little bit about why you might need a dye stock, and then understanding basically how to make a dye stock. And then we'll make it in the next video. So dye stocks are a liquid concentration of dye. So there's some powder in here mixed with water. It's just two items. It's your dye and your water. And some people do add their acid to their dye stock. We're not going to talk about that. I don't personally do it. So we're just going to leave that out. So anyway, okay, so you have liquid and you have dye stock, and you have you have liquid and you have your acid dye powder. And depending upon how strong you want this to be is how much powder you will have in that. Now, most of the time people refer to dye stock as being a 1% dye stock solution, or if it's black, a lot of times people will say a 4% dye stock solution or 5% dye stock solution. Or when you're buying your dye, it'll say things like 1.5% is basically what's going to achieve this color per pound of goods. The thing to remember is anytime you see them online, that color is based on dyeing a pound of fiber. Usually it's a weight of goods, which is usually a pound. It's usually on dyeing a pound of fiber and having 1 point or whatever percent that says that your solution has to be. So how do we make that not gibberish? Okay, pretty easily. First of all, let's leave the pound or the weight of goods out of it for right now. Excuse me. And just talk about how we can figure out what a 1% solution is. Okay, so 1% solution. Right there, the word solution is chemistry. We know we're talking chemistry. And we're going to try and make it as simple as possible so that you understand, because you don't have to understand a whole lot in order to make this basic 1% solution. So let's talk about the two items that you need to make the solution. You need 1, water, and 2, your powder. So if we were going to make it, we talk about a 1%. Well, 1% is always out of 100. So if you had 100%, right? So let's first start with 100% if we were going to make a 100% solution. So we have water and we have powder. Our water we will think of as milliliters because we're being scientific, so we have to be metric. So we have, and the metric system is in tens, so it's easier to get hundreds out of a 10, right? 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. Okay. So you get to your hundreds. So we will think of milliliters and we will think of grams for our powder. That's what we're going to use. So we also do grams in tens and hundreds, or we can do them in anything 1 through 100, but you can have 100 grams and you can have 100 milliliters. If you have 100 grams of powder and 100 milliliters of water, you have a 100% solution. You have an equal ratio of 1 to 1. If you have less than 100 grams of your powder with your 100 milliliters of water, that's when you have to know how many grams you have. So say you have 57 grams of powder and 100 grams of water, or 100 milliliters of water, you have a 57% solution because we are weighing them both in hundreds. We're going to basically we're going to be thinking of 100 grams and 100 milliliters. So when you measure your water out, you're going to be measuring your water out in 100 milliliters. So let's start with that. So if we had 100 grams of powder and 100 milliliters of water, we would then have 100% solution. So our general dye stock is a 1% solution. So how many grams do you think you need? You usually need 1 gram, right? So 1 gram, you have to weigh it, 1 gram of powder into 100 milliliters of water, which this is not, this is close to 200 milliliters, is your standard dye stock. Now, say you don't want to, because this is just a regular old canning jar. That's what I use those. On the side, you will see milliliters, 100, 200, 300. So if I wanted a 100% solution and I only wanted 100 milliliters of water, I would use 1 gram. But if I wanted 200 milliliters, I would use 2 grams. If I wanted 300 milliliters, I would use 3 grams. Now, let's get a little more complicated. What if say for instance, sometimes you'll see black needs to be made in a 4% solution. So you know that you have 100 milliliters always, and we are trying to make that ratio correct. So 100 grams and 100 milliliters is 100%. 4 grams would then be 4%. because we're out of 100, right? So 4% or 4 grams is 4%. So if I were going to make a 4% solution, I would need 4 grams of powder in order to make a 4% solution. And then if I wanted more than 100 milliliters, I personally, to make it easy, would suggest that you stick with your milliliters. So if you wanted, say you needed at least, this is roughly about 6 ounces. You would need, that's the cool thing about these, by the way, you have the milliliters on one side and the ounces and cups on the other side. So for those of us who are American, that helps. Okay, so anyway, so if you needed more than 100 milliliters for your project, then you would go ahead and say, okay, I'm going to need at least 200 milliliters of a 4% solution. So 100 milliliters takes 4 grams. 200 milliliters is double that. It will take 8 grams. And then a 3 is triple that. It will take 12 grams. So that is for a 4% solution. So again, think of it as, you're thinking of it as a whole percent. So 100 milliliters, 100 grams is 100%. 1% is 1 gram then. So when you're measuring it, will for a 1% solution, it generally equates to 1 gram of powder, just to let you know. The other thing to know real fast before I end this video is that all the powders do not, amount does not equate to the same weight. So you can take a half a teaspoon of this powder and a half a teaspoon of this powder and they will not weigh the same. So beware of that. A lot of times we just want to go ahead and kind of shorten the process and not measure or not weigh what we're doing. And we just take a teaspoon or half a teaspoon and we go ahead and put that in. If you want an exact, so that you can write your recipes down and know exactly what you're dyeing and recreate that again, you want to make sure that you weigh it instead. You'll notice also if you get, this is just 2 ounces and this is 2 ounces. And I have other ones, I'm not going to grab them real fast, that 2 ounces are a very large one. Or 8 ounces are in this size and another one 8 ounces is in this size. So the area that the powder takes up doesn't equate to the density of the powder. So I hope that clears up a little bit about acid dyes and helps you out trying to understand the ratio and the dyeing process, or not the dyeing process, the mixing process to get your 1% or 4% or whatever percent dye stock that you need. I hope this helps you out in achieving that. If you have any other questions, put them down below. I'll be happy to answer them. Or go ahead and email me and I'll get back to you. Make sure that you like and subscribe so that you can get the rest of the videos in this tutorial series of dyeing fiber with acid dyes. And I will see you in the next video.